Will you pray with me? God, we trust the ways that you plant in us. We trust the word sown among us today. Amen. You know, Jesus was famous for teaching in parables. And this is an interesting two-part parable this morning, the parable of the sower. The first is sort of mysterious and sparse, as most of his parables were. And then the second, he kind of seems to reiterate it in the text and expand and be more specific. And what I love about this duplicate is many scholars actually think the second portion was not what Jesus said, but it was what later people expanded, because they thought they kind of understood what Jesus was saying. And so they filled out sort of the sparse words around the edges. So the first part that we read during the Yah moment is more attributed to what we believe that Jesus probably taught. And the second part, which Jane read, is the more expanded, helpfully illustrative version. But what I love about Jesus' parables is they allow for all of us to enter into the story no matter where we are. And I love the expanded words that have been offered to us. So I'll be preaching from both of those today. There have been times in my life where I have yearned for God's Spirit or the seed of God to fall on me, where I have yearned for some movement of Spirit in my life, some illumination, some guidance. And in times like that, sometimes I'll look around and I'll see other people who just seem to be filled with the presence of God, filled with some connection to the holy, filled with some communion with the Spirit. And I will feel dry inside, or dusty, or yearning. Life brings us to many places, and sometimes in our life we are on a path. We have a direction that we are headed. Whether there is a goal that we're seeking to accomplish or we have to get something done in our life, we are on a path and we are being guided toward that vision. And there's nothing necessarily wrong with that. There have been plenty of times in my life where I have been guided forward, pushed forward, and I'm almost so focused that I'm not able to even take around what's on the path around me. Sometimes I have been that dry, packed down path. And when seed has fallen, I'm not even sure that I've noticed when I am living in that lifetime of the path. I am focused and I'm trying to get somewhere, but paths are not bad. They get us to where we need to go sometimes. They guide others along the way. They give direction. But it is true that when you are focused on a goal sometimes, when you are pushing that way, whether it's to get a degree or buy a house or move or get that next promotion, sometimes it is not possible to yield in that moment the seeds that God has for you. There are other times where I have been that rocky place, where if seed fell upon me, it would not reach any ground. There's too much in the way for it to fall on the earth and plant roots. And there have been other times where the thorns of life, where the pulls of wealth or friendship or the desire to be a part of the greater whole have blocked seeds from falling, have blocked seeds from growing. Part of what I struggle with in this parable is it seems to fault where you are in life, whether you are in a place of a path, whether you are in a place of rocks, whether you are in a place of thorns. We don't control the vicissitudes of life and where they take us. That is beyond our control. And when these things happen, when we are on a directed path, when we are in a life of rocks, not grounded, when we have thorns of life that are blocking our openness to God, it is really hard to feel God's movement in our life, God's seed falling on us. It is hard to take that and be fruitful with that. Life will buffet us with all of these things. But one thing that we can do, one thing that we do have in our control, is to ensure that we are creating a rich, loamy soil in our lives, that we are cultivating a fertile soil, so that when seeds do fall from God, when those miraculous, chimerous moments happen, our soil is ready. It's moist, it's fertile, it's ready to receive what God is sharing with us. I am not a gardener. I gardened proudly for one season, one glorious season during COVID. I thought I would return to it once the world opened back up, but it turns out, while I did love gardening, I love other things more. And so some of you may have some things to add to my list. But I was thinking about what makes fertile soil fertile. What makes our spiritual practices that we carry out in our day-to-day lives, what makes our lives fertile ground, so that when the seed of God falls on us, we are ready. Fertile soil, good soil, requires compost. And the thing about compost is that you need a variety of things. If you just keep putting the same kind of compost on your soil, it will, help me out here, the pH will get funky, or it's not what you want. It won't create that rich soil. You need green compost. You need brown compost. And you need poop. Aged manure. And so as we consider cultivating in our lives good soil, as we consider creating lives that have practices that create good soil, I think it behooves us to look on creating and taking in a variety of sources. What you're reading, who you're listening to, what you're consuming in media, the friends that you have, the activities that you pursue. I know that writing sermons week after week, sometimes that soil feels pretty thorn-covered. But I find that when I'm engaging in practices of consuming inputs from a variety of sources, my internal life is richer. My soil is varied and diverse. And then you need to aerate your soil. You need to turn it over, and you need to get fresh air and loosen that soil up. And I think so often in our lives, we just go to the next thing and the next thing, and we add more soil or we add more inputs. And part of cultivating good soil, or a practice of allowing God to fall on our lives, is allowing breathing room, is allowing space for things to settle, allowing open air to permeate us. So how might you invite that turning over in your life, aeration and rest? Finally, water. The comment about our good soil was that it is moist. So good soil needs moisture for all of those things to work. What nourishment are you seeking in your day-to-day life that allows water to fall on you? Spiritual nourishment might look different for each of us. Some of us go to the sounds of silence outside. Some of us come to Sunday singers. So there's silence and there's making a joyful noise. There's coming to worship, going on hikes, but looking for nourishing practices that allow things to settle. So compost, aerate, and water. Allowing ourselves to become that good soil so that when God's Spirit falls upon us, we are ready to grow and multiply fruitfully. Amen.